Good morning, students. In our last two classes regarding hearing physiology, we have learned about the detailed functional anatomy as well as hearing transduction mechanism, auditory pathway, and different type of membrane potential of the hair cells. Now in today's class, we will discuss about perception of different hearing attributes. In this segment, we will be able to learn how the sound is actually perceived, then how the loudness of the sound can be perceived or analyzed, how the quality of sound is perceived, and how the pitch of sound can be discriminated. All this perception, detailed analysis of critical attributes of sound energy actually are done at the level of cortex. Different association areas along with primary auditory cortex will perform the job to extract different critical attributes of a sound energy. But not only the cortex itself, various other structures which are situated more peripherally, like auditory pathways, basilar membrane, even the tympanic membrane or the auricle or the pinna itself can contribute differently for the perception of various aspects of sound. So, let us see how different parts of auditory pathway as well as auditory cortex contribute for the detailed analysis of various attributes of sound energy, namely loudness or the intensity, quality or the timbre, and the pitch or the frequency of sound. Before the detailed analysis of all these critical attributes, the first and foremost thing is perception of sound. The sound must come into conscious perception of the person, and this thing is done at the level of the primary auditory cortex. I have already mentioned you that primary auditory cortex is located in the superior temporal gyrus, also called Hessel's gyrus. The area classified according to Brodmann's classification is area number 41 and 42. This is situated in the superior temporal gyrus. This is primary auditory cortex. Primary auditory cortex, what is the main function? Is to bring the sound to conscious perception. We hear the sound. We actually perceive the sound. Now there comes further analysis of the sound in the various association cortices for audition. Auditory association areas are situated in the middle and inferior temporal gyrus, area number 20 and 21 according to Brodmann's classification. Now when the sound is just perceived, we hear the sound, thereafter they are transferred to the association areas for further analysis of various qualities of sound, that is its pitch, its timbre, its loudness, its direction. Any other specific quality of sound can be detailed analyzed within this association cortices. But other than this, there is some another specialized auditory association area known as Wernicke's area, which is situated in the posterior part of the superior temporal gyrus. It is area number 22 of Brodmann's classification. This Wernicke's area has got its main implication in auditory processing of speech. This area actually extracts the meaning of our auditory information. Whatever we hear, the exact meaning of that is analyzed and extracted by this Wernicke's area, and what is to be communicated in response in form of spoken speech is also generated in this vernix area. So it is the main sensory area for language formation and also a specialized part of the auditory association cortex. Vernix area, as it is involved in the extraction of the meaning of any auditory information, it is also known as knowing area or gnostic area. Vernix area or area number 22. So these are the central areas situated over the cortex for the ultimate interpretation of sound energy. Now let us see how various aspects of sound are analyzed. First of all is perception of loudness of sound. Perception of loudness. Loudness is the subjective interpretation of intensity of sound energy. Intensity of sound energy means how forcefully it strikes the tympanic membrane. And I have already mentioned that the measuring unit for loudness of sound is decibel, which is basically a comparison scale. It is basically a ratio how much louder is a given sound than the auditory threshold. This is the measurement of decibel. So 0 decibel actually does not imply absence of sound. It means the given sound is just of the intensity of auditory threshold, similar intensity. Now this loudness of sound is basically interpreted at the level of the cortex, of course, but various information must reach the cortex from where it can extract the exact loudness of the sound. As the sound intensity increases, the frequency of action potential in the auditory nerve also increases. So by getting the frequency of action potential, the sound intensity can be analyzed or interpreted by the auditory cortex. More is the intensity of sound, more will be the frequency of action potential. Next is number of auditory neuron that is recruited for the transmission of a specific sound will be increased with higher intensity. It is for all other sensory stimulus. More will be the strength of stimulus, more will be the recruitment of the surrounding sensory neurons. So also for the auditory nerve, more will be the sound intensity, higher will be the number of neurons recruited for its transmission. So how many neurons are carrying the signals will be interpreted by the cortex to interpret the intensity of the sound. Next is discrimination of pitch. We know that pitch or tone of the sound is subjective perception of the frequency of the sound energy. Now this frequency discrimination is a complex mechanism which is ultimately processed at the cortex, but actually this mechanism is grossly contributed by some other peripheral structures starting from the basilar membrane, the auditory nerves, all through as well as the auditory cortex. So let us see how different components of the auditory pathways contribute for the discrimination of frequencies. To describe the contribution of basilar membrane, there is two principles or the theory with which we can explain how does the basilar membrane actually contribute for the discrimination of different sound frequencies. The first one is place principle or von Beckes's travelling wave theory, and next is Volley principle. So let us discuss one after another. Place principle or the Pauli principle, both are related to the mechanisms generated at the level of basilar membrane. It has been found, it is a finding that as the distance from the stapes increases, the basilar membrane becomes more sensitive to the low frequency sound. That means at the just behind the oval window, nearer to the oval window, basilar membrane responds most to the high frequency sounds, and as the distance gradually increases, the response of basilar membrane gradually moves towards the low frequency sounds. This phenomenon has been explained by the basic mechanical nature of the basilar membrane. It has been found that the basilar membrane has got short and stiff fibers just closer to the oval window. But as the distance from the oval window or the stapes is increased, the nature of the fibers of basilar membrane becomes longer and more pliable. Now they can be vibrated easily, which can be done by low frequency sounds more optimally. So this difference in the mechanical nature of fibers of basilar membrane from base to apex of the cochlea makes it sensitive to different types of sound frequency. Higher frequencies can vibrate basilar membrane the most nearer to the stapes or the oval window, that is at the base, and towards the apex of the cochlea the basilar membrane becomes more pliable, the fibers become longer and thinner, so they becomes more sensitive to low frequency sound. Now this disposition of sensitivity of basilar membrane from base to apex is designated as place theory or von Beckes's travelling wave theory. Here in this diagram we are clearly seeing the depiction of this theory. We are seeing that just at the region nearer to the oval window, that is at the base of the cochlea, the basilar membrane is getting vibrated more easily with a high frequency sound. But as the distance is gradually increasing, it is getting vibrated with medium frequency and thereafter with a low frequency sound nearer to the apex. This is explained in terms of the difference in the mechanical nature of basilar. This membrane contains fibers which are stiff and short, which can be vibrated by only high frequency sounds, that is at this region. But as the distance gradually moves towards the apex, the fibers becomes long and easily pliable, long, slender and easily pliable, which can be moved easily by low frequency sound. This principle is called place principle and the theory is called von Beckes's travelling wave theory, and this explains the contribution of basilar membrane for the discrimination of sound frequencies. That means starting from the basilar membrane, the sound frequencies are segregated. How? the hair cells which are located at different regions of the basilar membrane will respond according to the frequency of sound. The hair cells which are located nearer to the base, that is just behind the oval window, will be responding more to the high frequency sounds, and the hair cells which will be situated towards the apex will be responding to the low frequency sounds. Likewise, the nerve fibers arising from them will carry those specific frequencies. So, basilar membrane itself helps to segregate different frequencies of sound. Not only the basilar membrane itself, but also there is same type of tonotopic organization of fibers into the auditory nerve itself. That means within the auditory nerve, the fibers that are arranged are according to different kind of frequencies. Higher frequencies are segregated to one side and lower frequencies are segregated to other side. This specific tonotopic arrangement of the auditory nerve itself will further help to discriminate different type of sounds, different type of frequencies of sound. Next is tonotopic mapping of auditory cortex. Not only the auditory nerve itself, but also the auditory cortex, both primary and association auditory cortex, there will be specific arrangements of the neurons which will be stimulated with specific frequencies. Like somatosensory cortex, there is also specific areas for specific frequencies. This tonotopic mapping of the auditory cortex will be helpful for segregating different type of frequencies that will be coming. So, starting from the basilar membrane itself, auditory nerve as well as auditory cortex will be helpful for the segregation of different type of sound frequencies. Not only the tonotopic organization, it has been found that within the cortex there is some complex mechanisms which also play a role for the segregation of different type of sound frequencies. What are those? It has been found that there are some neurons which are selected for the detection of sound frequencies. Specific type of neurons are there within the cortex for the detection of different sound frequencies. These neurons within the primary auditory cortex will form different kind of columns. They are disposed in forms of different columns named as isofrequency columns, summation columns, suppression columns, etc. Isofrequency columns are composed of neurons which are arranged to respond to same characteristic frequencies. Same kind of frequencies can stimulate this kind of columns of neurons. Summation columns are composed of neurons which are responsive to binaural than to monaural input. That means they will summate the oral input from both of the ears and then they will respond. And there is also suppression columns which will respond to binaural than to monaural stimulation, and accordingly the response to one ear will be prominent. This special columnar arrangement as well as tonotopic organization will help to detect the frequency of sound as well as to detect the direction of sound. Direction of sound I will be describing in detail further, but at this point we will keep it in mind that the columnar arrangement of different neurons of the cortex, auditory cortex, will help to segregate different frequencies of sound as well as direction of sound. And the columns, isofrequency, summation columns, suppression columns. So if we can summarize how the different frequencies of sound can be perceived, can be segregated, starting from the basilar membrane, there is different areas of the basilar membrane which will respond to different type of sound frequencies. At the base, the short and stiff fibers of basilar membrane will respond optimally with higher frequency sounds, but as the distance increases towards the apex, basilar membrane will respond to low frequency sound, and this is called place principle or von Beckes's travelling wave theory. Further, there is tonotopic organization of the auditory nerve fibers. That means there is specific organization of fibers responding to different kinds of frequencies within the auditory nerve. Entire nerve fibers will not respond to any kind of hearing frequencies. There is a specific arrangement for different kind of frequencies. A different region is designated. Now, there is tonotopic mapping of the auditory cortex also. There are specific regions in the auditory cortex which will respond to a specific frequency. Like somatosensory cortex, for different frequencies, different areas are designated. Other than this, there are different columnar neuronal arrangements, columns of neuronal arrangements like isofrequency columns, summation columns, suppression columns in the auditory cortex, which will be helpful to discern different sound frequencies as well as the direction of sound. Now let us see how the sound can be localized. The localization of sound. This is another attribute which will be done at the level of the cortex. So cortex is the ultimate area where the localization of sound is actually done. But before to that, different peripheral structures in the auditory pathway also contribute considerably for the detection of source of sound or the localization of sound energy. Let us see what are those. First is from the most peripheral part, that is contribution of pinna or the auricle. You know what is the main function of pinna? The main function of the pinna is to collect and reflect the sound waves from the environment towards the external auditory canal. Just pay attention to this diagram. This is pinna. This is pinna, and we are seeing that after receiving sound energies from different sides, it can directly transmit to the auditory canal or can reflect it in such a way that the reflected sound waves will be ultimately entering into the auditory canal. So collection of sounds and reflection of sound is the main function of pinna, and this specific peculiar shape of pinna will help to localize the sound, whether it is coming from the front or behind the ear, and also whether it is coming from above or from the below can be easily discerned. Now, not only the disposition of pinna itself, there are certain other aspects by which we can definitely localize the source of sound. Let us see what are those. First is the minute time gap or the phase difference between the sound waves coming to both of the ears from a common source. See, here is the source of sound from where the sound waves are coming from both of the ears. Now, when the sound waves will reach both of the ears in the horizontal plane, it will be collected by the nearer ear earlier. So, it will reach the nearer ear earlier than the distant one. So, there will be a definite time gap between the sound waves reaching two ears from the same source. Consequently, there will be a definite difference in the phase of sound waves in two sides. This is practicable mainly for the low frequency sounds, that is less than 3000 Hz. And there must be at least gap of 20 microsecond time gap between the two ears to be detected by the brain for the localization of the sound wave. If the difference is less than 20 microsecond, this can hardly be interpreted, or the localization cannot be discerned specifically by the cortex. So, it has been seen that there are neurons in the auditory cortex that receive input from both the ears, respond maximally or minimally when the time gap between the incoming signals from the two ears is delayed by a fixed period. Thus, by the specific time gap, brain can assess the localization of the sound wave. So, that fixed time gap is necessary for the neurons of the cortex, auditory cortex, to interpret the distance from the ear or the localization of the sound. So, this is the phase difference or the time gap between the input from two ears, by which auditory cortex can interpret the location of the sound. Now, the intensity difference. For sound energy of higher frequency, that is more than 3000 Hz, intensity difference is the main factor for sound localization. The time gap what I have mentioned is just for the frequency less than 3000 Hz, lower frequency sounds, but for higher frequency sounds more than 3000 Hz, intensity difference is the main factor. Sound intensity varies there distinctly between two ears from any specific side. That means the nearer ear will receive the more intense sound than the distant ear. Obviously, this is due to the distance travelled by the sound will be more for the distant ear than the nearer one, and during that time some portion of the sound will be absorbed by the soft tissue of the skull itself, and so the sound intensity will be more for the nearer ear. So, by the difference in intensity, the brain can interpret the localization of the sound or specific direction of the sound energy. So, this is how the interpretation of location of sound can be done at the level of the cortex. So, if we summarize, what are the mechanism of localization? First is position of pinna, which can discern the location of sound whether above or below, in front or behind. Then the time gap between the sound, so between the sound waves reaching two ears, if it is more than 20 microsecond, it can be interpreted by the brain from which side it is coming, and also the intensity difference between the sound waves reaching the two ears. So, by these mechanisms, the interpretation of location of sound can be done. Next thing, our next point of discussion is interpretation of sound quality or timbre. Quality or timbre means the capacity of the brain to distinguish between the sounds from different musical instruments, even if the sound of same note is being played by them. Suppose the same frequency sound is being played by sitar or guitar or piano. Even with our closed eyes, we can even interpret. If you are familiar with that, with those sounds, we can jolly well interpret the source or the musical instrument from where the sound is arising. This is because of the quality or the timbre of the sound, which is actually analyzed at the level of the cortex. For knowing this, we must know what is meant by pure tone, overtone and harmonics. The fundamental tone that is played by an instrument is called the pure tone. The single or fundamental frequency is called pure tone. A complex sound is one where there is more than one frequency, and the lowest frequency in a complex sound is the fundamental frequency or the primary frequency, and all other frequencies which are the multiples of that fundamental frequency are called overtones or harmonics. The overtone or the harmonics determine the quality or the timbre of the sound. Variation in the quality permit us to identify the sounds of various musical instruments like guitar, piano, sarangi, etc., even though they are playing the notes of the same pitch. So, this is the proportion of different overtones or the harmonics by which we can interpret the quality of the sound. So, basically these are various aspects or critical attributes of sound and their interpretation at the various levels. Now, one thing I must mention, that there is a term called cortical plasticity. What is that? Cortical plasticity means our brain has immense capacity to undergo modulation in various diverse situations to increase or decrease its functional capabilities, and this capacity to change its functional capability is also true for the auditory cortex, and this is called auditory plasticity. The example of auditory plasticity are shown or observed in various examples, like individual who become deaf before the language development exhibits greater capacity to respond at sign language. Their association auditory cortices becomes more efficient to respond to sign language. They become responsive, more responsive to sign language. As they are deficient in spoken language, they cannot hear, but they can efficiently interpret the meaning of sign language, and their association auditory cortices become efficient for that. Individual who becomes blind early in life can localize sound better. Their sound localizing machinery becomes more powerful. Musicians usually shows increased size of auditory areas which are activated by different musical tones. They also show a greater cerebellar size because of learned precise finger movements. Cerebellum is responsible for skill development or learning the motor skill, and you know the playing music is one of the motor skill and during learning these motor skills the cerebellum becomes increased in size. So these are some examples of auditory plasticity shown at the level of the cortex. So this much today. If there is any question or any query, please let me know. I will make you clear once again. Thank you all.